welcome to Just Talk Funerals with me, Jason Threadgold.
And me, Nichola Threadgold.
Just Talk Funerals is all about the funeral industry, the people that work alongside us, and an insight into what we do.
We will have some special guests along the way, sharing their experiences and how their professions overlap with what we do.
So get yourselves comfy, grab yourselves a cuppa, and let's get into today's episode of
Just Talk Funerals. Hello and welcome to another further episode of Just Talk Funerals. And today things are looking a little bit different because Jason has been called away today. So I've got Suzanne with me who's going to be co-hosting. Thank you, Suzanne. And Suzanne has been with us for 7 years now in our business, and it's been a real sort of good moment for Suzanne to come in and do some co-hosting because Suzanne does a lot of work with memorials. She's one of our memorial consultants. So, you know, a great time for her to come and help me today because our guest today is Reece, who works for SP Memorials in Bawtry, which is a local memorial masons to us. So welcome, Reece.
Yes, thank you very much.
Coming
Good morning.
in. I think we're both really excited, aren't we, Suzanne, to hear a lot more about memorials and your take on it. You know, we feel that, you know, over the sort of 12 years that we've been in business, we've sort of learned a lot from you guys. But to have you in, I think it's going to be a really special episode.
And
so
good for the families as well, I think, to understand.
Absolutely. So talking about memorial masonry today, and we want to sort of talk about the craft and understanding it a little bit more, the care and the meaning behind memorials, because, you know, they are all very bespoke and there is a meaning behind them. We feel, you know, that's really important as families choose what they want. So memorials are often the last decision that, you know, a family will be making. And so it's got to be a real sort of lasting sort of thought process. And, you know, we're always here to help. So Reece, you know, tell us a little bit more.
I mean, like as you mentioned, the craft itself is, you know, the last thing that you can do for the bereaved and for the loved one. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it, and people kind of come in that state of mind, as you both well know. And it does seem hectic. It's a rush. Yeah. But you just have to say, you know, just take your time, because once this is in, then that's it forever, you know. And some people, you know, do sometimes go into it a little bit too fast. But then again, that's our profession and our position to say, just take some time. Yeah. We're here when you need us. Just think about everything, you know. There's a lot to think about when it comes to a memorial that people sometimes don't really realise, like paperwork behind the scenes, who's, you know, who owns a certain grave and etc. So there's so much to it, what people overlook. They just want the memorial. So yeah, there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. And obviously I'm sure we'll get a little bit deeper into that. But yeah, that's, like you say, it's the last thing that we can do, and it's our duty of care to, you know, to provide that service. So yeah, it's interesting for me to, you know, it's like it was a new world when we started that, and now it's like such a refreshing, you know, a final thing that we can do, and it's rewarding. So yeah,
once it goes up and the family are pleased with it, there's just nothing like it. It's, you know, it's amazing feeling.
And when you hear that, you know, that compliment after, and thank you, like, you've done the job, they're happy, and it's like, you know, they can kind of move on.
We've got somewhere to go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Suzanne, so do you want to ask Reece some
questions?
Yeah.
So the section I've got is regarding the craft of memorial masonry. Obviously, there's a lot more to it than people think. How did you get into memorial masonry? What made you decide to do this? Or did you kind of fall into it and realise it was a path for you?
So at 14, we were sitting the exams at school, and then we got the gap year. So as soon as I just turned 15, we had the gap year kind of to revise and get ready for the exams. And I wanted just a little part-time job, you know, to fund going out, or just, you know, was getting to that age where I wanted to go out with the mates. And so I stumbled across it. I didn't apply, I stumbled across it, and then a friend of my father's, he called and just said, I know there's a local job going down, because I only live 2 minutes down the road in Bawtry. So I popped in, saw Steve, and then Monday, the weekend after, started there. And like I say, it was just a summer job. Just to see me through. So then I said to Steve, I've got my exams. So on the exam days, I just had the day off, and he let me have them off. And then after that, it was kind of college, apprenticeship, or full-time work. So at 15, he took me on, and 12 years later, here we are today, talking about that. So yeah, it was something that I've lived there for 22 years before we moved. But for the first, you know, 14 years of me being there before I started, I never even knew it was there. I went past it every day.
Yeah.
And then when I worked there, I was like, wow, I never even knew this existed or what it actually was.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a shock to be there. And then, you know, but when I think about it now, it's like perfect for me. I just didn't know it. You know, I couldn't think to do anything else now. It's like a dream job. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't know that story.
No, it does sound like it was meant to be.
Yeah, it just happened within a few days to not knowing it was there to working there, and then 12 years now here. So, yeah.
Wow, that's really good. And what skills do you feel are involved that people might not realise?
I'd definitely say patience is a big thing, which I've come to kind of learn. You know, in the later years of being there, I started dealing with customers, and it's kind of having that, you know, that connection with the customers, and especially in the state of mind that they are in, it's kind of how to approach things, and that's a big skill that I've kind of learned and took on, you know, kind of what things to say, not necessarily you say bad things, but like the right things at the time.
Yeah, them to make the right decisions.
Yeah.
So that further down the line, you know, they've got what actually is going to work for the future as well, and understand how things look for the memorial when it's done.
Yeah, exactly that. And I mean, the other skills, the crafts that I've learned over time, for instance, you know, we'll get into it, but the blasting, the gilding, just even when it comes down to just the proofs that we do, the size, the design, the fonts, all these skills that I've learned, you know, like I say, I had no idea about the job at 14. I was just making a few cups of tea from dawn and secretary and stuff. And yeah, now I kind of can do pretty much all the skills that are required. So I've learned a lot of skills. And it's brilliant. Yeah,
that's really good.
Yeah.
And how much of your work is traditional craftsmanship versus modern technology?
It might just be worth understanding for the viewers what that means.
Well, I mean, with the modern technology, obviously we're talking with the engraving side of things. Obviously, traditionally we're talking hand-cut letters, doing it by hand with just the hammer and the chisel, which is still a thing. We still do that, but it's a very, very, you know, niche craft now. It's something that's kind of, you know, modern technology has taken over for time, easiness, speed, and also, you know, cost-effective. Memorials, funerals, everything. It's not the cheapest side of things.
That's right.
So when it comes to it, you know, letters and stuff that are included with the modern day technology, kind of they're the forefront. So I would say, you know, 90% is modern day, and then we still have that 10% of, you know, people hand carving the memorials, hand carving the designs. Whereas now again we can blast a design on there within minutes. Traditional craft, looking at weeks to hand cut it.
I guess traditional is probably more where somebody's got a headstone already, maybe in a churchyard, isn't it? Where that would be called for more now. Because, you know, churchyards have their own rules and regs around what can be put into a churchyard. So if you've got lettering that's come out that was leaded and tapped in, that's what's got to go back, isn't it?
Very strict in the churchyards. And again, they like to keep it traditional. Because that's kind of the, you know, the scene of the church, and we keep it that way. So the 10% I was mentioning is probably the churchyard kind of, you know, side of it, and then the cemeteries are very more modern.
And I mean, you've done a couple of inscriptions for us on an existing war memorials, which you know were obviously traditionally done. And you know, it's an amazing thing to see it when it's done and it sits with the others so beautifully. You do realise how much work goes into the traditional side of things, and you can understand the cost, whereas initially it's like, whoa. But it does take such a long time.
Obviously, you know, we're marking up on average, let's just say 300 letters, for instance. Each one was written by hand, measured out. There's modern day technology, so kind of a sticker as such, a stencil. So for time and effectiveness, it's one extreme to the other. But traditional looks amazing.
It does.
You know.
Which do you prefer, Reece?
I definitely prefer modern day doing it. But like I say, when it comes to the traditional and you see it done the hand cut letters and how clean they are, that it just finishes the memorial off. But it's nice to see a memorial at the end of it, you know, done and it's doing its purpose.
And one of the questions we get asked is about sustainability and ethical sourcing of stone. Is that something that you have to consider that is moving forward, or is it something that's kind of stayed where it is with regard to sustainability? I mean, it's something you can't imagine. I can't imagine where it comes from, if you know what I mean. I guess it's a mine. But so how does that work with today's standards with regard to sustainability and ethical sourcing?
I mean, when we're talking about granite side of things, sustainability, you know, these quarries and the stuff that we get imported in are humongous. Like there's the supply of granite over there in endless amount of colours is, you know, it will foresee I'd say this generation, and so on. When it comes to, kind of the Portland, the York stone side of things, that is thinning out a little bit. But again, it would, there's a long future of them. But I'd say granite is obviously, and then granite has took over as we spoke, modern and, traditional. Modern day granite is, I would say very sustainable. And even, when it comes to a lot longer lasting too, the deterioration and stuff like that. So I would say definitely granite's got a long, sustainability. And I think, like I say, the traditional York stone has, but I wouldn't say as long. It's definitely thinning out a bit.
Yeah. Am I right in thinking that you choose Indian granite?
We do,
Yeah.
indeed.
So why do you choose Indian instead of, say, Chinese or even English?
Yeah. I mean, the Indian granite, we just, probably personal preference, we just find the colours a lot more dominant, a lot more, consistent. The wearing of the material, like I say, the discoloration over time.
Yeah.
The granite from India seems to be a lot longer lasting. And we have had other granite, obviously from elsewhere, and it's just not sent to us last as long, or like defects within it. And obviously when you're waiting, as you know, 16 to 20 weeks for it to then have that issue, it's a little bit of a big setback. So we prefer Indian granite, and the connection there is, we trust their source, and the products that have always been spawned kind of don't break something, don't fix it if it's not broken. So we've stuck with that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And it's difficult. People think sometimes it's choosing a stone, but obviously we know there's a lot more to it than choosing a stone. There is the colours and things like that. What do you feel the reality of it is? What do you think people should think about? And
again, when they come in, it's hard because they just want the stone, just the stone. But then, like you say, you sit them down. Colour-wise is a big thing, because then, let's just say they wanted silver letters, for instance, that then has a massive impact on what coloured granite you need. Reflective, if they have grey and silver, sometimes it doesn't stand out. And again, they don't necessarily think about that. When it comes to granite and the traditional, like we said, the York stone, that is another thing, deterioration. If you haven't got family members that kind of are up there once a week or so, the maintenance on it with a granite memorial, you'll probably just need to scrub down with a sponge, whereas, your traditionals, they will get dirty, they will deteriorate, and they'll need like a whole refurb in time to come. So there's a lot more to it than you think. And again, some places don't allow certain colours, some places don't allow certain sizes. So when a family come in and they're set on something, it's hard to sometimes say, it might have to be smaller. We might have to look at changing the colour of letters. Because obviously we have to do what we have to do to abide by kind of the rules. But there's always a way. We always find a way, and we always make sure obviously they're satisfied at the end of it. So
it can be a difficult conversation to have. I mean, Nichola and I were talking earlier, a family come in and they want, a 6-foot high memorial, and you get to the nitty gritty of where's it going, and it's going in a churchyard, and the regulations are a 12 by 12 plaque, and it's handling that side of their expectations. And we quite often say to families, well, go and have a look what there is, because that'll indicate to you what you can have, especially when it comes to churchyards as well, because there is a set of regulations for churchyards, but some vicars are more lenient than others at times. So it can be quite a difficult conversation to have, to sort of manage people's expectations, can't it?
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes, like you say, not that you think that you're lying, but it's when they say they've seen others in there, and we've seen this, we've seen this colour. But obviously, like you say, you mentioned the vicar at the time. If he says no, he says no. It's hard. And you could do the plaque, and then a couple of years down the line, another vicar. You could be seeing headstones again. So it's hard to kind of tell them that. But like you say, there's only so much you can do. But if they're allowed to put it in, then you have to stick to them guidelines. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant.
Okay, so we may have touched on this, Reece, but what do you find that families feel is the hardest part of choosing a memorial? Would you say it's the colour, or is it the size, or what is it in your sort of remit?
I think kind of the range and the variety people don't expect, if that makes sense. So when they come, traditionally what you see is kind of blacks and greys, but it's the range of colours is very, very wide, and sizes and shapes and kind of designs that are on there. So I think they come in and have like a vision in mind, and then we sit them down and say, here's a brochure. Then when they go through, they're kind of taken back by what is actually possible. And we like to say, say you'd like this memorial, but this colour, this size. But like you say, as bespoke, we put them all together and create that very personal memorial. So I think that is a big thing. And again, also, like I say, colour letters and stuff. It's hard to see what gold leaf looks like without seeing it, and silver and how it corresponds with the stone. And but that's the decision. But we can show them samples and go from there. But I would say that's the hardest, and especially when it comes to, you know, permits and as such, kind of when you need the grave and a signature. No one tends to know who that is because it's always the next of kin, and it doesn't always work that way. And that's another thing that obviously they don't know about until they come to see us. So that's another big
assumptions are made
thing.
out that you know that it's passed down generationally without actually telling anybody. So you know they'll assume that the council know that that person's passed away, and that they're the inheritors of the estate. But actually, unless somebody tells the council, they don't know. So then, you know, I mean, we've done it many times, submitted a permit and it's come back and they're not the owner. And it seems a ridiculous question at the beginning of the process. Who owns the grave? And they're like, well, of course I do. And you're like, well, when you say of course, you know, you have to sort of question that a little bit more deeply. And yet the church aren't so bothered about who owns the grave.
Well, not necessarily an ownership.
Who you know, who has the rights to the grave, but with the church they don't seem to be as hung up on the next of kin. So it can be totally different for two different families. And I think inscription's quite hard for families as well. Choosing an inscription. We have people walk in and go, well, what can I have? What can I have? And it's anything. You can have anything pretty much, especially if it's a cancer cemetery. So
And I was just going to say as well, and I think that's why Jason and I decided to, I mean, we've always done memorials for the 12 years and we've always worked with you guys, which has been an amazing relationship. But to have our own sort of showroom now and dedicated memorial consultants, because there is so much to consider with a family, isn't there? You know, so having that time to be able to spend with families more now in a private setting, I think really helps families because they can really think about the inscription or really look at what they actually need, and we've got that time to spend with them now.
And the samples, you know, we've been showing people a 4-inch square sample
or a brochure,
you know, dragging them out into the sunshine and hold, you know, that's when it's upright, that's when it's because they look different when one's upright. And you see it in the office and it's a different lighting, and where it sits in the cemetery can make such a difference. But actually a few people have been in to see them and have actually chosen the colour based on the samples, which we would never have
done.
Most people stick to black because they know it, and it's a given, whereas people have seen things and say, oh, I really like that colour.
Having those life-size memorialised now
made such a difference. It really has.
And the sizes, isn't it? Okay, so here's one for you, Reece. So say a family come in and they say to you, I just don't know what I want. I mean, we get that, don't we? And, you know, where do you start with that, you know?
It happens
a really
a lot.
hard question.
It does happen a lot.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, having the showroom available is a big help. You know, we have the showrooms that we can show them, but generally we say we have the sizes kind of set out in standard order. You know, we start with the 2'6", then the 2'10", and we've just got the slightly bigger one. And we just say this is the standard size. When it comes to councils and the permits and everything, we stick within the regulations. So we say this is the standard size that you are allowed, that will pass all the permit regulations, and what 90% of the memorials look like. And it just gives them a little kickstart, and they say, oh, I like that shape, but I'm not keen on the colour. And then we can kind of barrel into the different colours. And
it's like layering up, isn't it? Giving them a little bit of information at one time for them to process that, to then move on to the next question, isn't it?
Couldn't have said it, but that's exactly it. It's just a little kickstart. Because again, you know, it's something, and obviously without me working here, I've never personally been to do it, that situation. I haven't been in that situation, so for people it's the first time quite a lot of the time. So just help them as much as possible, give them a little inkling, and then just let them, you know.
I think as well, and we probably would all agree, you know, doing it step by step, little steps, and sometimes you do so many steps and then they have to go away and think about it, because you got to remember these people are still probably high in grief, aren't they? You know, and can be quite emotional when they come in to do this next step, isn't it?
Yeah,
so,
it is a lot, You know, and that's the best thing, because again, people do rush into things. And once it's signed and ordered, you know, it's kind of nailed on. So we say, go away and, you know, be in touch. And
I mean, I've said to families before, you can see when you're talking to them, they're not ready. They just want to, they feel they've got a void as well. So they've they've lost the person, they've had the funeral, so there's a lot of planning and attention on that time.
Yeah.
And then they want to keep that momentum going, but you can actually physically tell they're not ready to make those decisions.
Yeah.
And you know, I have said to families, I don't feel you're ready.
Yeah.
You know, with the greatest respect, go away, have a walk round the cemetery you're in as well, and get an idea for these things, the inscriptions and things like that. And they're not ready. And that's difficult, but it's the right thing to do rather than offer them something or them end up with something that goes up. And, you know, and they're like, well, actually, that isn't what I wanted to say. So, you do sometimes have to say to people, you're just not ready. So, it's looking after them, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Which I think, again, leads me nicely into, do you find memorial decisions are often made with either heart or head?
Yeah. Most of them, again, as you can feel, is heart. You know, a lot of them come in and, to be honest with you, a lot of people already know kind of what they're looking for, as in they've been, you know,
done a bit of research.
A bit of research, or say the mother or father, whoever the deceased may be, has kind of let them know kind of what they like, especially with the partners, because they know they sometimes come in prior, you know, unfortunately, as a partner decision, so they know they're set for later life, obviously, for the partner. So a lot of it is definitely, can tell hard, but some of it is head when they come in and they're adding this and they like this design and just kind of putting it all together, and then we have to come back and it's like, right, we need to design this now, and it's going off a bit of a tangent.
Won't fit. It won't fit.
It's a little bit too big, but we make it happen. So
I think they come in with the heart and we have to be the head.
So
they come in wanting to just to produce something from the heart, which might not always be practical either for now or the future. And we have to act as the head. And I always say to families, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. You know, they want 15 flower vases because that person to them is so loved. And you're like, well, okay, but you're going to cover the inscription. You know, it's 50, you can't leave one empty. So you have to have that discussion. So I think they come in and are led with the heart, and then we have to sort of be the head and the conscience and say, well, have you thought about this for the future? So,
but I mean, that's so important from experience point of view, isn't it? From you guys, from us, that we do have that experience to be able to do that. Because the last thing they want to do is maybe have 15 vases, and then once it's complete, look and think, well, I can't see the inscription. You know, us being able to see those sort of things. You know, it's important, isn't it?
Yeah, just you mentioned it, like location. It is a big thing, and obviously when it comes to the flower container, if there's, for instance, central, then it comes down to us. We have to design the font, the layout, just stay out that central way. Even though we centralise everything, we have to kind of stay away from it, keep it higher. And then again, when it's left and right, people just think, oh, we'll put left and right in. We then have to kind of then centralise everything, just to keep it, keep it visible, and keep it, as aesthetically pleasing to the eye as possible. There's so much to it within the millimetre of the letters and the distances. And
I mean, I always say as well, when you're creating a headstone, it is a bespoke piece of art. No one is ever the same, is it?
Not at all, no. No, I've done, I don't know, thousands, honestly thousands, for 13 years, and I've not done one identity, not even close, I mean, even a standard one, the font's different, how they want the speech mark, everything, it's so personal.
The stone is different, isn't it, as well? Everything.
Yes.
Really interesting.
Okay, so now we're looking at, thinking about personalisation and meaning. How has memorial design changed over the years?
It's got a lot more, I would say, technical within the detailed side of things, as we spoke about technology. When I first started, we were doing the designs that we offer, and they're all done by hand, drawn, sketched, and picked out with a stencil and kind of shaded. And now we can pick any image off of the internet, or if a family bring an image in, put it into our kind of system, have a little play with it and stuff, and honestly, it's phenomenal. The detail that you can get with these designs now, and faces, you just engrave them onto the memorial and you wouldn't even know that it's, you think it just came with it already on. So the design and kind of stuff like that has gone a long, long way. But the traditional ones still look very, very good. It's just kind of like you say, the detail now. People come in with some, different designs. Such a range of designs that people can have. So to be able to obviously put it on the memorial as well, it's a big thing as well. Some people say it has to be on, so we have to make it happen. And sometimes, back in the day, you couldn't do it by hand. So it gives us that ability now, to really meet everyone's kind of satisfaction of what they require. Details, it's come a long, long way.
I mean, I noticed that obviously working with families. I mean, to be fair, I must apologise, Reece. Partly it's my Google search. The family will come in and say, you know, I've got one at the moment, gentleman wants a yellow orchid, but then he wants it extending so it splits the page, if you like, but it's got to be this particular yellow orchid. So I'm like, Google, send that. SP can do that. Yeah, we can extend that stem down. Yeah, that'll work. And luckily now it does happen, and it is great to be able, and I think people want more personalisation on memorials, things like that, designs, Disney princesses, everything like that, you know, they want on there.
Yeah, it's exactly that. Like I say, the Disney side of things, you know, even fonts can be Disney font. Yeah. Castles, the shapes, headstones, it's just endless. The possibilities are endless. So.
It's amazing. I'll keep challenging, don't worry. What are some of the most meaningful inscriptions you've worked on?
We have done, as you mentioned, you know, a lot of war memorials. Yeah. And we did a huge one back in, I think it was called Rotherham Park. And it was huge. It was like 5-foot pillars by 3 foot. There was 11 of them all connected like in an arch. Wow. And I just started. It was like my first job that I went on. So obviously I was learning so much at the time. Yeah. But it was a big shock for how many people kind of came and watched us, if that makes sense. Yeah. And they come up every day to see the progress, and because it meant so much to them, with it being a war, that. So it was all new to me anyway. And I thought, oh, this is normal. And then when we went into the cemetery, I was like, where's everyone?
Where's my little pillars? Where's my pillars?
So I take these, but that's probably the most, you know, hard hitting. They all are. It's obviously it's a hard thing to kind of, you know, do. For us as yourselves, it's normal now, if that makes sense. Yeah. It's just a job, and you're doing it.
They're high, aren't they? And and luckily we followed through and are able to meet them.
But they have that. Obviously, they all hit hard because obviously you're doing something for the deceased, and you're trying to do your best to make it as good as possible for them. Yeah. But the war ones do hurt a little bit more, because obviously people come to show the respect, and the loved ones are there, and the name, they get to see it. But then again, it's rewarding after the fact. So it might be a little bit, you know, sore, but then after that you think, oh, actually it's the best thing I could have possibly done for them at the time.
Being under scrutiny as well, it's difficult. I mean, we do say to families, they'll be like, well, can I watch it going? And we're like, no, not really. It's not. You know, it gets worse before it gets better, doesn't it? And, you know, you don't really want people standing over you, looking down. And
a lot of added pressure. Not that, you know, we do anything different, it's just demise.
It's their loved one's space, isn't it? It's their loved one's space, and you feel you kind of, somewhere you shouldn't be, but it has to be to end up like that. Yeah. I mean, with the next question was going to be, do families want more personal, but we kind of covered that off, really. And what symbols and motifs are becoming more popular? A lot of flowers, a lot of Disney, photographs. I mean, we've done Tesco delivery van, you know, we've done Disney princesses. So I think people want more and more personalised things. And especially when it's somebody young, there's a lot to say. You know, when someone's lived a long and happy life, and you sort of putting an additional inscription on for someone, or starting a new memorial for someone who in time will be within that same grave, and having that conversation with them. But I think, you know, when we do children and youngsters, there's a lot to say, and they are really, really personal. I agree. And like shapes and stuff we do, you know, when it comes to it, as we were talking about shapes, football shirts, as you mentioned, the young person.
Footballs, I think.
There's very, very personal. But again, it's nice that we can offer that and be able to do it. So.
And lots of different faiths. You know, we've done lots of different motifs for different faiths as well, which is amazing to see, because it's not something I would think about day to day, and families come in and they want a motif and it's absolutely spot on now. You know, it's not our interpretation of it, it's literally spot on to what they wanted, which is just, well, it's lovely. That's the best part of it, isn't it? Individuality. And we were going to ask if there an inscription on a memorial that stayed with you, but you've already answered that one as well. I think, I mean, I've got one that was a gentleman who'd lost his partner, and I don't know if you remember it, and he'd picked one out of the brochure it was kind of a split stone with a bridge across the middle, but the bridge was kind of a precast brass bridge, which I hadn't picked that one to say, and it was a lady and a gentleman, and he wanted 2 gentlemen. And you did me a design, and I sent it to him, and he loved it, and it's really stuck with me. And yet I was so nervous because I couldn't, and it's one of the questions we talk about, I can't physically show them it.
Yeah.
Because it's never been done.
No
We've never
example,
done it
it's
before.
never been done
Yeah.
before,
Yeah, we
never
had
been
a
done.
Bespoke cast made. And
And I made Dawn send me a picture of it before you blasted it because I wanted to see it. I was
Yeah.
that stressed, and he absolutely loved it. And it's one I show people all the time. It really stuck with me. It was so, you know, when it wasn't brass, it was carved out of the stone.
yeah.
It was two gentlemen on a bridge embracing, carved out of granite, and I still find it amazing that happened. So.
It's nice. It just
It's
shows
rewarding that we
possible.
could do
Yeah.
that for that man.
absolutely.
Exactly, yeah.
No, he'll never forget that, will he?
So that was meant to be Reece's question, but I've answered it.
That's perfectly fine. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about maybe some of our frustrations when we talk about regulations. And I think we can all probably say that sometimes, you know, regulations and rules, we can get frustrated because we just want what's best for the families, don't we?
Yeah.
But, you know, why are cemetery rules so important and why do they vary so much?
I mean, the variation, I would say, is just looking into the foreseeable for health and safety, mainly.
Yeah.
You know, the sizes, we can see them getting smaller and smaller, we can see them getting thinner and thinner.
Yeah.
And that is down to, you know, just health and safety of a memorial because they are heavy things. And we've heard, obviously, tragic things on the news regarding memorials. And that's why testing now is become such a big thing. We have to go around and make sure the memorials are up to standard. And if they're not, they either get laid down or they get put to standard really quick. Just because of the aspect of safety. And I mean, regulations, I suppose, you know, they have to be there as a guideline for everyone. So someone can't have something bigger than others, say. You know, if it was possible, there's a limit where you can reach. But we do some that kind of, you know, get the way around it sometimes. And again, then you think the other families can't do the same thing. But yeah, rules and regulations can be a nightmare. It's, you know, even when it comes to, we're talking fractions and stuff, and it can be really, you know, the margins are so fine. But again, we have to stick to them. I'll bring up one we've got at the minute. We put the memorial bin in, I want to say like 2001 or something like that, into a church. And it's a big oval one with the two hearts carved in, not really traditionally what you'd have in a church. We've recently taken it out. The new vicar's there. He will not let us put it back, even though it's already been in for 20 years, you know. And that's the kind of things that we come across. So we had to find the original application form 20 years ago to prove you let us put it in and sign it. And then now they're not having any of it. So we're stuck with the memorial that we've put the new lettering on. The loved ones want it back in, and we're saying they won't let us put it back in, you know, and it's already been in for 20 years. So they're the kind of things that we come across, which is, you know, kind of bonkers. But I mean, you can only do what they say.
Mate, I've had one like that.
I was just going to say.
We did one, and it took us, I think, 3 years, and we had to go to the diocese for a faculty. And again, it was black polish, not allowed in a churchyard. But it had been in. The lady put it in for her husband. She'd then passed away, and the family wanted to put it back. They did want to make a couple of tweaks, a wider base to cover a couple of graves instead of one, and they wanted to do some edges and things on it. And it had been brought out of the churchyard, and the vicar would not let us put it back in, and we had to go to the diocese. They had to consider. We had to get photographs of where it was in relation to the church, how far away it was, when it had been put in, and we didn't have the background information. And they let us do it with a couple of tweaks. But I think it took 3 years, and it cost quite a lot of money for the family as well. And it is frustrating, especially when you have taken it out to bury someone in the same grave, or, you know, it really was sad for the family. Luckily, the family were very understanding, and
but they kept on it, didn't they?
They were not going to. She said
give in.
She'd picked it for him, and she was going in there with him.
More than fair.
And we got there in the end, but it was stressful for them and us, I think, as well.
So we talk about, Reece, obviously when we put in a memorial into the ground, or when we've you know, maybe took one out and we're adding an inscription, we're putting that memorial back, and we talk about the fixing size. Do you want to explain a little bit about that? Because that's really important for safety, isn't it?
So with a new memorial, comes a standard with the memorial now. We have to have the sub-foundation, so we have the concrete that goes underground level, and they're 3 foot, you know, they span the grave. And then we have the terrazza on top of them, which is another cast concrete with like a nice speckle to it. You know, it's another, obviously, stability access, but it also lifts the memorial up, gives it a nice little surround step before getting to the granite.
Yeah.
And again, they have to be up to today's standard. They're required, reinforced concrete. And then it goes on to, all the kind of fixing purposes of the metal bars. They have the NAM fixing now that has to go, through all the bases into the ground.
They're like rods, aren't
They're
they?
the rods.
Yeah.
And then you also then have the dowels that go into the base, then into the head of the memorial. And sometimes, there's a lot to it. But then when you think about what could happen if it doesn't have it, which we will come into now, it's a big thing, for such a simple thing to do. Yeah. It has to be done. Yeah. But yeah, for the ones that we take out, sometimes don't have, what's required for today's standard.
Maybe erected when
exactly
there wasn't that health and
the new
safety
laws
thing, was there?
Yeah.
We didn't have to do that.
And that's always, changing, as in health and safety things of new materials or what length of dowels and stuff like that. So these ones that kind of could be put in before that was, needed. Is then another added cost, unfortunately, but it has to be, it's necessary to have. So these that come out, then we have to put them back with the new concrete, with the treasure. 9 times out of 10, re-drill and re-pin because we can't locate the dowels, so we have to make sure that they're in, and also put a NAM fixing in. So there's a lot to a memorial once it comes out, other than just an inscription. As they think, again, it's something that the family have no idea of, they're not aware of. So again, it's how we put it across to them. It has, because some people say, well, why does it need it, or as if we're kind to I'm not saying con them, but people think, well, some don't, but for us as registered masons, qualified, and obviously with the licenses, we have to stick to the rules. So there's a lot to it.
So when you fix a new memorial, how long does it take you from start to finish? Once you arrive at a cemetery, say it was a new one, how long does it take you to put it in the ground and get it complete?
Depending on kind of size and whether it's full curb, but traditional headstone, just a standard, you can probably be done within the hour, just over an hour, from start to finish. Curb sets, a couple of hours. They take a lot longer because they have the long landings, the bearers we have to dig in. There's so much more to the curb sets. But a good hour for a headstone, start to finish, and a couple of hours for the the curb sets and stuff. And little plaques, they're always nice. Little dig in, plunk them down, cement them in. Little half an hour job. But it's finding them that's the hardest. Finding the grave, the numbers. Sometimes you don't always get numbers and the names.
Not always uniform, are they? In terms of
it can be a nightmare. And some run side to side, parallel, back to front. So finding them, it's the hard bit. Once you're there, it's
the number is not
standard.
always logical. I know we had a gentleman come in and he bought a plot for him and his wife, but they were like number 14 and number 37. And he was adamant, and they went down that way and then back up. So he got to 14, but then it went down and they went right next to each other. But he couldn't understand it, and in the end we had to go and meet in at the grave with the town councillor and say, look, this is how it works, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's not going that way. And he just couldn't understand it because it was the grave next door, but they were going that way. So I
must say, having worked at our local crim for 7 years and understanding those cemeteries where we are, the rhyme and reason of why they are numbered as they are is, I don't know. Don't know who thought of that in times gone by. Certainly challenges us now.
Definitely.
I was also going to say as well, Reece, sometimes weather is against you, isn't it, for fitting headstones?
Massively, especially here.
Soil.
Rain, soil, and even, as you said, like sometimes where a grave could be located could be right next to a tree, or just tree roots. There's so much that can't be under there. But weather's a big thing. The rain is, pretty much a no-go. Because you cement, you can't obviously don't adhese properly. Weather, if it's going up to under 5 degrees, you cement, everything like that. You can the anti-frost stuff within it. It's not ideal at all, and it doesn't bond. So, being in the UK, it definitely has a big impact on weather conditions. And again, we speak to families; they know it's going in, and sometimes it doesn't always work out. You have to kind of ring them and say, "I apologise," but the weather just isn't on our side, so we'll go again. But weather's a big factor. In fitting memorials.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and do you feel there is a right time after a funeral to arrange a memorial? In your eyes, I mean, we have our thoughts on this, don't we? But
as in regards to coming in to order one, or for us to actually
for families to come in, so I think sometimes families not sure when to come in after a funeral.
There's definitely too soon, if that makes sense. It's definitely, as again, they come in, they've done the funeral, and now they just want to carry on and get it done with and kind of move on. But definitely need some time. As in regards to fitting the memorial and stuff, we need up to at least 6 months for the ground anyway. So we say take your time because we need this time to order it in or get the memorial done or everything. So we definitely like to have a little thinking time and process on it. So if they can leave it a little bit, and then they probably come in with a little bit more of an idea then as well. They've kind of
just think
thought about things, and it's not rash.
And when they've visited the grave a few times as well, they get a feel for what's around there, and you subconsciously they're looking at what there is and what other people have got, as opposed to coming in totally without thought. We have a lot of people come in and they misunderstand the 6 months. They think they can't look for 6 months. They think they can't sort of start looking at it, and you're like, well, no, because then if it's got to be ordered in and it's going to be maybe 6 months all told, they feel let down a bit then that we can't get them something that they really want quickly.
It is a big thing. Ordering especially, and they come in, and when we do tell them that, that's always not the case as well, because it does come from India. Anything can happen. So sometimes this docking date that we give them can be delayed. So then again, it's kind of not letting them down, but trying to let them know he's still not here yet, but as soon as it's here, because once it's there, we can turn it around super quick. It's just getting our hands on it. So it's just trying to keep them kind of, at peace, knowing it's coming, but without hurting.
Well, I remember the Suez Canal thing when the boat got stuck. Do you remember? And they were in Belgium. They were all over, and families were really concerned, and it was like, well, we don't know where it is really, because it's on a container and it's got to, but they've got to find a way around, and then I remember having something turn up in Belgium, and everybody was like, well, why is it in Belgium? But there was just nowhere else for the boat to go, because without getting the boats unloaded, they couldn't go and pick up again. So there's only a finite number of containers and things like that. So there's always something to tax us and test us, isn't there? So what factors affect costs the most with regard to a memorial? Just an idea. Obviously, there's
definitely, I wouldn't say obviously size comes into it, but regarding we go from the 2'6" to the 2'10", it's not crazy within difference in cost. It's mainly when it comes down to colours. Your blacks and greys are kind of standard, and then when you're looking into these colours, as in Bahama blue, your tropical colours, it has a big increase just because there's so much rarer within these quarries, as we mentioned. Kind of the sustainability of these quarries are kind of dominant blacks and greys, and so colours has a massive effect. A big thing in a memorial which people also don't think about is whether they're kind of in parish or not in parish. The deceased who live within the council or not. If they get buried, you could be talking 5 times more for the permit fee. If you live there, say £100. If not, it's £500. So there's so many more added costs that can occur that again they're not aware about. So those are the two main factors.
And designs and things like photo plaque, the more complex it is, there's a cost to every element for that, isn't there? So the more, if you have a photo plaque and a design, and and then they want another image on the base or things on the base, there's different sorts of bases that they can have for future-proofing things. And again, when someone's young, there's a lot to say. People are going to be looking at that stone for a long time, so they want more and more on there. We've done footprints, we've done handprints, we've done photo plaques, full inscriptions on the base of poems and things like that. So all of that has an impact on the cost.
It does indeed.
And like you say, the curve set, the colour. It's I have people ring up. We had a gentleman yesterday.
We did.
I want a price for a headstone, and I went, well, I can't really just give you a price for it. No, I just want an idea. Well, it depends though. Is it a cremated remains grave? Is it a full grave? Is it a curve set? Where is it? Like you say, there's permit fees and things like that we don't control. We had to say, well, go away, have a look at what you would like, and then make an appointment, because I can't just pick a number. It could be anything from
such a vast
£1,300 to £6,000, depending on what you pick. How much is a headstone?
But when you don't know, you don't know.
You don't know.
Well, that's it.
When I wasn't in this industry, if somebody had said to me about a headstone, I would have had no idea. It's until you need to know, and people don't sort of look around and start to think about headstones unless they really need to.
And that's why we don't give a price, because it would end up being a full curb set with a slab on the top, and they're like, well, you said it was £1,200. Well, so we have to be cautious and manage their expectations as well, don't we? So,
Okay, so part of memorials then and that ongoing grief, how do you feel memorials support families long after the funeral?
I would say definitely a place to visit is nice, you know, people, and we do get returning customers, unfortunately, that come and they come and say, you know, it's withheld this, the gold's still brilliant, it's still a place we go and we love to go there. So we've seen it firsthand 30 years down the line that they still have that place to go. So again, as we mentioned, it's a forever thing. And personal experience, like within my family, it's something like, especially my mum, to be fair, has not kind of let go yet. And there's nowhere to kind of go and not necessarily just grieve, but just to visit. And obviously, you know, it's trying hard to tell her to say, you know, once you've kind of done it, you'll have that place to go, you'll have that place to visit and have that quiet time. So yeah, with other families we see it, and it's nice. That's definitely something, you know, peace of mind. They know they're settled and they can go there whenever they like.
Definitely.
I mean, they're honoured, aren't they, as well? They're honoured that you know, that person's honoured and they existed and they're remembered and thought of. You know, you don't always need a memorial to do that, but it is nice for people, especially if people have faith and things like that. It's really important to their grief process,
Definitely.
I think. Isn't it?
100%.
I must say, again, times I've worked at the crematorium and I've observed many people where you get, if it's been a young person that's passed away and they've got a grave, you might see people gathering, young people gathering on an anniversary to remember that person. I've seen people sat in deck chairs, just maybe having a beer sat on at the graveside. You know, you see people just laid, you know, near the grave and sometimes talking to that person. You know, and if that's how that really helps them, I think that's it's lovely to be able to do that, isn't it?
And privately as well, because you know they can go in their own time, whereas you know their brother, their sister, their husband, their wife might want everybody to go at once, but you just sometimes need that quiet time on your own. And most cemeteries or churchyards are so. I mean, I'm not a spiritual person, but I find at my local crematorium, the cemetery there, Woodlands, really peaceful. It's just, it's even if I'm not going to visit parents, it's just nice to be there sometimes. You know, when it's a nice day and you've just gone up, passing, and I'll just go say hello, and you see other people, and there's a respect. Everybody's respectful because they're all there for the same thing. So it's lovely, and like I say, it's just honouring those people that they existed and how much they mean. And you can do that privately or with the rest of your family.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think, Reece, that sort of families' relationships with memorials change over time as well?
I would say, it's a tricky one. Especially, I would say, the elder side of things. It was trying hard to find a kind of, obviously they probably don't, but they can't actually, you know, when it gets to an age, as you mentioned, you know, cleaning it or going to visit it, it's not that easy, you know, once they have got that place to go. So probably over time, maybe just due to that, just for kind of accessibility, if that makes sense. But I don't think, you know, a lot of them, they're still there forever and they still visit it and they're still probably forever visit it if possible. But I think over time, you know, sometimes we do get these inscriptions and we bring them in and you can see that the stone, you know, it's not kind of being treated to for a long time, and then when it comes to actually seeing what we're putting on, you can understand why, if that makes sense. There's no more family. Obviously the lady or gentleman is getting to that age themselves where it's not easy just to pop up now and clean it and get down. So probably in that perspective, I would say so.
Okay.
And obviously families often ask, can we add more names later? I think we know, yes, that is possible, and that's part of the planning we do with the family, isn't it, to make sure there's space left. And I always think with families, it's a very strange question to ask, and you ask it early on, do we need to leave any room? And sometimes you'll get the answer back, for me, do you mean? And you're like, kind of, yes, I was trying to be subtle. But it is important that, you know, we can leave that space, isn't it? And it is one of the questions we have to ask early on. There's no point designing a headstone that's full, and then you're like, but you'll only have one lamp at the bottom. So,
am I right in thinking we've got two families there that have actually put on their names and date of birth?
Yeah, certainly one.
Just
I know
waiting just for date of death when the time comes. Is that?
We've done that. I've done that. Oh, not necessarily say common, but we have definitely done it a few times, and very recently we've just done one. And again, that kind of comes back to the cost-effective
Yeah.
question we was
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, because you're getting all your letters
Get your
done, aren't
letters
you?
for free within the
Yeah.
memorial, but
Yeah.
you know, when the second time comes, it's an added cost. So
Yeah.
yeah, kind of maybe a little bit wiser than you think.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, they just leave obviously
Yeah.
that date off for. When
And
the
yeah,
time
other
comes, but-
people, you know, we have the gentleman I can think of particularly, he's got everything bar his date of death on there.
Yeah.
But then you have other people who, so it's quite fashionable at the minute to have like a book design, isn't it? Where people have the sides
The two.
instead of top and bottom, people go left and right. And some people are like, oh no, I don't want to be looking at where I'm going. You know, so it goes both ways. Some people find it really weird because that's their blank page. And yet this gentleman goes, and I imagine he goes quite often and sees his full page.
His name.
Already there,
So yeah, it is funny how people see that. But you know, I have people who physically shivered. Oh no, I don't want to be looking at where I'm going to
Each
go.
to their own, though, isn't
Yeah.
it? We're not here to
Yeah,
judge.
exactly
It's what
that.
That's the
people want.
personality of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
But,
definitely.
yeah. And then with one, and again, people ask us, can inscriptions be changed? I kind of know it can be done, but do you want to explain how that is done and what the process is called?
Is it called rubbing out? Do you call it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah, kinda.
Yeah.
Just not with the rubber. It's
Yeah.
a bit trickier,
Yeah.
but yeah. You know, we go back and forth with the proofs like many times, as you well know, just to make sure it's perfect.
Yeah.
Sometimes little things do get missed, dates of deaths or little names, you know.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it can be repaired. We have to take the memorial out if it's something that we can kind of adapt and make that letter or that number fit, then we will try. Again, cost effective. But yeah, if not, it's a full reface or rub out. We have to rip all of the memorial down, take all the lettering off, repolish it up, and just go from scratch really. So yeah, it can be done. Not something we enjoy doing at all. But yeah, it's definitely something that can be done. Or again,
is it ground down or is
Yeah,
it blasted down or?
it's ground down, polishing pads, they rip it down,
Right.
and then you kind of come back up 3 grades, giving it a bit more of a polish, getting further and further, and then buff it at the end, and it's brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks
it's
completely
dusty.
different now. Yeah,
it's a
well, you can do
dusty
it wet.
Yeah.
You can do
Oh,
most of
right,
it's done
okay.
wet,
Yeah.
just so it don't get too hot and burn.
Health and safety as well, I guess, for the guys doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you wouldn't imagine what a black granite headstone would look like when it's polished. It don't even look black.
No.
And then you just go from that stage. The next stage is black. It's a crazy process to see.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a
Interesting.
memorial in the showroom that it's the one it's got all the inscriptions, the different colours, and that's
Yes.
polished on the front, but that's not polished on the
polished
edges.
yeah.
That's right.
And it looks a really dark. I mean, I
Yeah.
really like what they call it honed, don't they, where it's not polished.
Yeah.
I really like honed headstones.
Yeah,
They're just
they are smart.
Yeah, they just look really different.
Yeah.
But a gentleman's actually chosen his edges on his headstone to be like the one in the showroom.
Yes.
Yeah.
He doesn't want them
Yeah, I know
polished.
which one
So
that-
yeah.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
yeah, and what maintenance is needed? Obviously, once the memorial goes up and it's all lovely and shiny, what maintenance would you recommend? I know Donna said to me before, we don't want them there with a toothbrush going in the letters, but what is the best way to look after it once it's gone in?
It's as simple as it sounds silly. We just use a sponge and
Yeah.
water, just cold water and a sponge. That's it, and some blue roll. That's how we clean it off, obviously. But yeah, we get people with detergents and scrubbing brushes, which sounds like it would do the job. But then the gold leaf, I think it's 24 karat gold leaf. It'll soon come, paint rubs out. And we get a lot of people ringing up saying, my gold's come out. And then we go up and we see the brushes and the wires behind it. And we think, okay.
Kind of
But
understand
yeah,
that.
but cold water, sponge, and just a cloth to clean off. And that is it.
Just
On
basics.
on the granite, when it comes to, the traditional yolk stones and stuff, if it does need cleaning, we'll have to bring it in and use grinders and acids and stuff like that and different.
Yeah.
But it's not something a customer can. You can try, but it's always going to deteriorate.
Sometimes
Especially,
best left to the professionals, I think, when you're looking at doing stuff
Yeah.
like that.
it's not just something over the counter you can buy to use. It's it's
proper
for the
stuff.
purpose. So yeah.
Yeah, another one I've been asked as well, and I mean, every day within the business is a learning day, whether it's the funeral side or the memorial side, about lead letters in plaques. Can we repaint it as opposed to re-lead it?
Okay.
And that is something that we can't do, isn't it?
Very tough.
And
'cause,
why is that?
If it's been leaded before, you have to pre-drill all the holes for the lead to that's how the lead stays in. It catches and fits in the hole, and it kind of locks it in place. Once that lead comes out, you know, you're not getting paint in there. You've got the holes. It's impossible. We then have the option to rub out and reface, but to drill the lead in, you're going quite deep compared to a traditional blast for granite. You don't have to go very deep. When it comes to lead, you have to get the depth for the hole to hold the lead, because really without it, it's just sitting there. So you have to get some depth to the lead. You have to get the hole deep, and once that's done, it's kind of game over. It's either lead or a new plaque.
And you know, I mean, a lot of families, we have that conversation. There is a particular churchyard local to us, and it is either lead, but we have found a shift more towards painted. Partly because we explain to the families why. We have had people say, well, I'll go and paint it, it's all right. And you're like, well, yes, but, you know, come back to us and we'll argue a new plaque, because it doesn't work. But it is interesting to have someone else explain it, because I'm never sure I get it right in my explanation of why.
Lead's very different as well. It's hard because I'm not a massive fan of lead, because, you know, like you get the letters that pull out, you get letters that deteriorate on marble, and you can't get the lead back in. So the letters don't always stay the same letter, if that makes sense. They can break off. And it's a lot of work, you know, just to do on the plaque. It's a lot of, like you say, blasting it to start, or hand cut, then drilling it, then leading it, then you've got to clean it off, scrape it off, and acids and everything come into it. It's a big job.
I didn't realise all of that.
There's a lot to lead.
It's always intriguing me, and it is something to say to, you know, to say to families, it just doesn't work. But I know I'm not a mason, so I have to kind of sometimes get an email that says why not. But
Okay, just some closing questions for you now. So, is there one thing that you wish people understood more about memorial masonry?
Or
maybe you think we should understand more?
No, I don't think so. No, maybe time as such, not necessarily on our behalf, but just maybe getting it in general. You know, customers, you know, when you tell them something, they've got the right to kind of ring up and say, where is it? So maybe just, you know, a little bit on that. And sometimes it feels like, and especially in the state of mind, some people think, you know, you're doing our job, you're doing our parents, our beloved, you know, that's deceased, and that's kind of it. But we have hundreds of jobs on, you know. We have so much to do, and we can only fit so much in one day. We can only do what the weather allows us to do. So sometimes it's kind of think, you know, we're doing this.
Time constraint.
There's a lot more than just this specific one, even though it feels like it, and I appreciate that to that individual.
And which is how it should.
Exactly that, and we keep it very personal to every individual customer, but we also have vast amount more on, so probably that, if anything.
Okay. And what's the most rewarding part of your job, Reece?
Rewarding part is definitely when, not necessarily they always come back, but that email after, or the phone call to let them know it's done. They can't thank you enough, honestly. For me, every step's kind of rewarding now, because I do a lot of the designing, and then it comes to the proofs, and we can do the blasting. So every step is like a layer of, it's like a journey of this memorial. And then once it's in and done, and that finished photo, that's, you know, you've done the job, and then the family can, you know, they've got somewhere to go and move on. That's the best part. Definitely.
I think it is for us as well. I get those lovely emails and families ringing up and saying we've been to see it.
That's it.
And you know, they're just overjoyed, aren't they? And it's quite emotional for us, isn't it?
It is. You do become invested, because some families are very straightforward. They know exactly what they want. You do one proof and it's bang, bang, bang. And then other people, and you know, it's their process, and that's kind of where we say sometimes it's too early. They're dealing with their grief through planning the memorial. You know, the gentleman with the bridge across his, we went back and forth a lot, because he wasn't really ready, but he'd got the kernel of what he wanted was there. He knew definitely what he wanted, but the wording he was struggling with. And he was trying to think about everybody else as well. Again, it was someone quite young, trying to think about all the people that might want to go and visit that memorial.
That makes it harder then.
And more so then you become a bit more invested, and you sort of like, oh my God, it's gone up. And like I say, when Don sent me the picture and I saw it, I was like, oh, thank God, it looks like two men on a bridge. It was like amazing. So yeah, it is. There's nothing better. And some are just really get you. They just really get to you.
Yeah, they do.
Definitely.
Okay, so for any families listening, Reece, who are unsure about taking the next step to looking at a memorial, what would you say to them?
I mean, mainly we're here when you're ready, when the time's right. Again, there's no rush. As I mentioned, you know, personal kind of thing. We're my mum's been like 6 years now and not kind of let go yet. So there's no rush.
No.
You know, take as long as you like. We're always going to be here.
Yeah.
And the memorial, whatever you decide, you know, we'll make fit for purpose and
Yeah.
as personal as you like. So yeah, there's no rush. Definitely, that's the main thing. It's come when the time is right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the biggest thing to say to him. You know, just one
Or
step at a time.
come and have that initial meeting, and it'll maybe highlight how you're not ready yet.
Yeah,
That's
maybe.
it.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe
Or if
make
you
that
are.
appointment.
Definitely.
Yeah, the thing that comes to it is we always say as well when we're doing stuff, this is forever.
Yeah,
So
and it's for you.
don't rush now.
Yeah.
And then in a year's time, you know, this will be forever. Let's get it right.
Yeah.
And they do. They understand that, and then they come and we get it right. So
Yeah.
that's a big thing.
Amazing. Well, I've really enjoyed that. I don't
Yeah,
know
it was
about
really
you.
Thank you.
informative.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having me. I
It's
loved it.
been a real pleasure to have you here to talk about. I've learned a few things as well.
Yeah,
As I say, we've been
absolutely.
working together for 12 odd years now, but
Yeah.
you know, every day's a learning day,
It
isn't
is,
it?
absolutely.
So thank you so much for
No,
coming
you're more
today.
than welcome. Thank you for having me.
I hope you've enjoyed this session of Just Talk Funerals, and thank you for listening, and we will see you again soon.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Just Talk Funerals.
We really care about what you think. We'd love your feedback on the subjects raised today, or maybe you have a question you would like us to talk about in a future episode. You can contact us by emailing podcast@threadgoldfunerals.com.
If you'd like to know more about what we do and the services we offer, then please head to jasonthreadgoldfuneraldirector.com. Thank you for joining us today, and see you next time.